Hi class, Miss Jansen here. I am going to discuss these while loop notes that have been posted by your teacher. These are notes from a previous iteration of the course, so I will go through them and what I did. So the topic for this course, for this video, is loops. Are loops, yes. So if you look at the Khan Academy, you've done all these sections. You should have done all these sections. And the final section you'll be working on in this course are loops. So you should watch this video, do the exercises, watch this video as well. And this is the project, but I will also show you some examples of previous projects. But definitely get these videos watched. Now, another thing to keep in mind, you've already used loops, but you didn't know you used a special case of a loop. And that's a draw function. So using the draw function. So the draw function, if I can remember how to do the draw function. All right, so if I put in here, if you remember the draw function when we did animation, and if I put, let's say, var y equals 10. So this will relate to that first video under the while loop section. And if I put here, let's say, text hello world, and I put it at, let's say, x is 20 and then the y value. Oh yes, default color of text, of course, is red. It is white, so I changed it to red or some other color. Feeling green today. Now, using the draw function, how could we get hello world drawn all the way down the screen? Well, we could simply say y equals y plus 20, for example. And it keeps going. It's darker at the first one because it was before we incremented. So if I restart this, you can see it's not dark. So that's how the draw function is a loop. It keeps repeating. But we don't always want to use a draw function. And in programming languages like C or Java or Python, we don't have the draw function. We need to use loops. And the way we define loops is the same, whether it's in JavaScript, just the Boolean conditions are slightly different. JavaScript, C, Java, Python. So the syntax for a while loop, as I have written here, is we have the keyword while, and then these round brackets. So what's required is the while, the open and close round bracket, and the open and close curly brackets. In here, we need a Boolean condition, something that evaluates to true or false. And the code inside this while loop will continue as long as this Boolean condition is true. So I'll say code repeats as long as the Boolean condition is true. All right, so here is an example. So we have x and y, and again, this is basically like the one I just showed you. And we have here text hello, x, comma, y times 2, but here we're only incrementing the x by one value. So, and we have this Boolean condition that says while x is less than or equal to y. So let's see what actually happens when we type up this code. So I'll go back to our JavaScript program. All right, so what I've done is I commented out that draw function I initially showed, and then example with a loop. So I would have, let's say, var x equals 10. And we didn't define, actually we did define y, never mind. But we don't change y. So that's a subtle thing that's put into this code. So if I say, let's say while x is less than or equal to y, and these Boolean conditions you should get used to as well. You'll see them in all languages, programming languages. And then here, if I say, let's say text, of course I have to change the font color. And then I say x comma y times 2. And then I say x plus plus. Remember, that's a short form that adds 1 to x and puts the value back into it. So if you, again, default color. So here, see what's happening? You don't really see it. It looks smudgy. X isn't being increased by much. So if I had here, instead of x plus plus, if I said x equals x plus 20, but again, nothing's happening. This y value is not changing. So if I do, let's say, maybe you'll see it a bit more here, 5. You can see by the overlap that it prints a bit, but it's not printing much. So let's see what's actually happening. So a lot of times you'll be given this question: how many times does this loop run? So you see that here. And usually what we do is we like to do what's called a trace table. So if we look at the variables that are defined, we've got x and we've got y. If x initial value is 10 and y's initial value is 20, and I ask you, well, how many times does it repeat? Well, you can see for this code, x increases by 1 each time. So that means it's going to go from 10 to 11 to 12. Each time, we say each time through the loop. So we go execute the code inside this loop as long as this Boolean condition is true. 12, 13, you can see it written here. And you can see that it happens 11 times. Now you might say, well, what about y? Y is changing. Here we're having y times 2. All that does is it makes this value 40, because that's 20 times 2, but it doesn't change the y value because there's no, what we call no assignment statement. So y doesn't change. And if you're not clear about that, maybe send me a message. So y doesn't change because no assignment statement. No assignment statement, nothing like y equals y times 2. That's considered an assignment statement. Like this is an assignment statement because this is a short form of x equals x plus 1. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to go to, and again, these trace tables, I sort of stopped here because it's written here. So each time through the loop, when x is 10, if I was to say, okay, what's the output? The output is hello. And we go to 11, it goes again because 11 is still less than 20. So why is 20 all the way down here? So we've got 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, haha. Poor planning, 20. And all the way for all these different values of x, it's all less than or equal to y, so it continues. And each time through the loop, we print out hello. But it's just being shifted over slightly. We don't actually see the change because it's sort of blended so close together. But as soon as x becomes 21, this Boolean condition fails. So Java no longer goes into this loop, and it'll start executing code outside the loop. And that's the difference with the draw function. The draw function, we don't have a Boolean condition. Okay, so I'm going to flip to the next page. All right, so I'm going to make a separate video after for for loops. So this is the while loop example that I just typed in JavaScript in the previous page. So if I was to write what's called a trace table for this loop, what it would look like is I would have a column for each variable defined. So we've got x and y. And what I could do is I could make, just to show that this Boolean condition, I can make another column for the Boolean condition. And we read this as x is less than or equal to y. So as long as this is true, we continue doing the code inside the loop. So our initial value of x is 10. Our initial value of y is 20. Well, is x less than or equal to 20? Yes, it is. So what we would do, let's see your JavaScript window, you would output this at 20, 40. That's 2 times y. So we would get here, hello, in red, not blue. And then here, we have x equals x plus 5. So this x value changes to 15. We don't change y at all. So y stays at 20. So initially, this was true. 15 is still less than or equal to 20. So this is true. So that means we go back and do this loop again. So we go in, we then write hello at 15 and 20. So it would be like shifted over. So that's why it looks blended. And then we add 5 to x. So this becomes 20. Again, y doesn't change. We come up here, check the Boolean condition. 20 is still less than or equal to 20 because it's equal. So this is true. We go back in. Now hello is written at 2020. So it looks something like this. Then we add 5 to x. Y stays the same. Now here, this Boolean condition fails because now 25 is not less than or equal to 20. So if we were to be asked, how many times does this loop execute, we would say 3 times. So this is the syntax and practice of using a while loop. So the next video I'll talk about for loops. Thanks.